Welcome to the Ask Ezra podcast. Real people with intimacy challenges and real intimacy coaching. I'm Sir Ezra Algos, intimacy coach at askezra.info. If this is your first episode, you might be asking yourself, what is intimacy coaching? One definition is that an intimacy coach helps people feel safer, closer, and more connected to their lovers, friends, and even themselves. It is my goal to help people become closer to the people that they care about. So join me for this session already in progress. What kind of things are you exploring these days, or would you like to?
I honestly have no idea. I've been in a very vanilla relationship for over a decade now. So it's like I'm ready to get out and, I don't know, spread my wings a little bit.
Mm-hmm. What kind of fetish stuff is interesting to you?
I like the idea of role play and using that. We did a little bit of the role play exercise in class, and that was kind of like whoa, I really liked what we talked about, and had lots of things added to it that I've been thinking about. I'm like, oh my God, this is really fucking fun. So yeah, that would be kind of a good one. And it's also one that I feel might be helping heal the trauma of being raised in the Catholic Church. So
yeah, that's a very potent opportunity. There's a whole community of recovering Catholic fetishists. Recently, a porn star that I follow on Instagram was like, all I want to do is suck a dick in a confessional booth, through the wall.
Yes, that sounds amazing.
And I was all I want is to have a confessional. There's definitely a lot of potential there.
Okay. And
I think it's easy to think about role play as some big hill that it's going to be hard to climb. But it's absolutely not. Fantasy, if you've ever sat down and been that would be hot. That's just one person role play.
Yeah.
You just need to involve somebody else. And people go but I'm not a good actor. And it's bullshit. You never get pulled over and pretended you didn't know you were speeding.
Yeah.
Be
a liar.
Yeah.
Be a liar.
Yeah. And it's not lying. It's acting.
Right.
It's acting.
Acting. Yeah.
Okay. Now, when you imagine role play, what kind of fantasies come to mind?
So the one that I had actually also involves a confessional, a confession booth. And it was one with another woman and I just fucking going at it in the confessional, and the priest just had to sit there and listen to us.
Is the priest into it, or are you torturing the priest?
We're torturing him 100. He's also kind of into it, but he's tortured because, masturbation is a sin.
Yeah, so he's sitting there on the other side of the screen, just rock hard and not able to touch himself.
Yeah.
That's hot.
Yeah.
That's hot.
Yeah, I know.
In this, I always want to check power dynamics.
Okay.
Are you sort of on the level playing field with this other woman, or are you being controlled by this other woman, or are you controlling this other woman?
So I kind of on a level playing field, but then the kind of one of the things that has been added to this fantasy is someone else coming in and telling us what to do, telling us how he's how we're going to torture him best.
Not the priest, though.
Not the priest.
Yeah, the priest is definitely lower on the power structure.
Yeah, no, he has no power. And then also the idea of just going out and then kicking down the door to the confessional and making him actually watch at the end was. So
it's you're almost othering the authority. So you're the two women, you and the other woman don't have to worry about the authority, but then sometimes you try on the power.
Yes.
Too. Sometimes.
Yes.
I would invite you, as you find that fantasy that's really sexy, but you have like power elsewhere. Like I would invite you to be that power elsewhere and then come up on that fantasy, because you have that fantasy pretty well worked out, it sounds, right? So you can be that fourth person coming in on two women and saying, you do this, torture him, and just kind of see how it feels, because that can be informative of like where you want to be in power dynamics of the role play when it becomes actually in person. I mean, they say like in your imagination you are each person anyway, but to sort of identify as that person can be an interesting thought experiment.
Yes. Okay.
That sounds super hot, and I encourage you to share that with partners and people that are open to that, and maybe somebody's interested in participating.
Yeah.
And like there's ways to simulate multiple people. Like fantasies are always easier to actualize with two people because it's just fewer moving parts, right? It's just simpler to get one person who's into it than to get two people who are into it. So so what you could do is get like an audio track of Catholic hymns or something, or like you could have like one person, you could get like put it in the closet, right? Put a little stereo in the closet, and he's like, I
used to sing during mass, so I just like my heart just went, ooh.
Yeah, that means it's good. That means there's some potential there,
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of practicality, like you could find a couple, and if they want to, they want to entertain this, then you can, stick the guy in the closet and give him a script. But
here, put the collar on.
Yeah, but I actually looked up collars the other day. They're not too hard to find. So
no, they are not.
They're like $5. You don't even have to wear a whole shirt. They do like a bib.
Yeah.
Yeah, but again, just practicality speaking, like if you can simulate one of those people, like that's going to help it be more attainable. Hey everybody, it's Ezra. And wow, isn't that exciting? Wouldn't you like to be the next guest on our show? Well, you can. Just email askezra8@gmail.com. And hey, if being on the show is too much and you'd just like to get some private intimacy coaching, that's available too. Now back to our show. This is a great opportunity to talk about like risk mitigation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you were to go into an actual confessional with a woman and be, and start doing lesbian acts, that could have some
get arrested.
Yeah, that could have some serious real world negative consequences, right? And so what we want to do is we want to be able to live as close to that as possible in a way that carries an acceptable risk. Is there a risk of being caught that's part of the attraction?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay,
absolutely. Great. Yeah. Yeah, that's a big one in like all aspects. Is like I've always enjoyed that little bit of risk, like sneaking off at a house party and fucking in a bathroom or on a roof or, wherever. I have fucked in the church parking lot before.
Oh, have you?
Yes, and didn't realize that it was Saturday. And, Catholics have mass at like 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. on Saturdays. So we heard a woman go, and we look up and like she was like getting out of her car to go into mass.
Yeah, you could get arrested for that. And while I appreciate the thrill of that, and I've done a lot of things in my youth that I would now consider unacceptable risks.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I was a minor then. I had no concerns whatsoever.
Yeah, what are you gonna get thrown in juvie? Probably not. I used to fuck in the woods. Was my thing. Yeah, that's a good time.
Yeah.
So
yeah. We always snuck off somewhere, like go on a hike, and like that thing of like stoners going, oh, I know a spot. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great spot to smoke and fuck. Like,
yes, indeed. So there's some risk attraction, right?
Yes.
And as adults that are right before being arrested, we need to be aware of those risks, and what are the real world consequences of some of these things, and how do we simulate them in a way that isn't going to get us in trouble, isn't going to change our ability to have agency in the world, because you don't get to shower on your own from prison. We can simulate these things. So, for example, this summer, I'm going to camp on private property. And so I'm going to be able to fuck the woods. And I might be like, oh, I'm breaking the law, but I'm not, right? It's a private property.
You're on private property.
Yeah, I know the people. We're good.
That sounds really fun.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun.
That's a really great idea.
Yeah, I know. We might actually do some like predator prey play where I'm like, I have to like hunt her down. That's so fun. Yeah, it's going to be a good time. So fun. But again, it's a situation where you have to look at like what is really attractive. And I think it sounds like you're lucky in that there are like a wide number of things that are attractive. But sometimes we're like, I need to fuck outside and maybe get caught. Right. And that's pretty dangerous. And so we have to kind of simulate that, as opposed to actually do it, or find a way that it's doable. There's a park in the Netherlands where you can fuck outside in the park. It's a public park. People can watch. But, there's like safe spaces, right? And there's other things you can do. Like you can be like maybe alone in the house, but like leave the door open and be like, oh, I'm not, somebody might discover us. But just like feel around for that. Like, how can you add that element of the fantasy in a way that's like really low risk? Right.
Okay.
So we're talking about, discovery, fantasy, and maybe some control stuff. What else? What are the kind of role play things were attractive to you?
I have always wanted to, I guess, learn how to be more submissive. I've never really had partners who were comfortable with being the more dominant one. It's hard for me to imagine because I haven't done it.
Sure. And that's where like erotica or porn can be really informative. Like,
yes.
They make poor examples of how to negotiate and how to get informed consent. But they do inform us of like what's erotic to us. Like, what are these situations that are really exciting? So, so that's an option. There's definitely a lot of porn and stuff like that.
Yeah. I liked the idea of like being tied up, blindfolded, maybe even, having earplugs in and having like sensation play, or, just not knowing what's going to happen. Like, I like that.
Well, I do actually offer sub and slave training as a service.
Oh.
I'm not sure it's a good fit, like it's not coaching. It's different than coaching. So like what that would involve is basically like being my submissive, but it wouldn't be a bona fide relationship. It would be like for educational purposes. So to give you an idea of like how I run my personal relationships, if somebody feels like they are serious, then they are offered a position of being in consideration, which is to say like not dating, but now boyfriend and girlfriend is like the equivalent is consideration. And then if they make it through the consideration period, which for me is like 6 months minimum, then there's a training period, which is again another 6 months minimum, where sort of standards are set and expectations are set and communication sort of worked out and things like that. How it differs when it's a service is that it's not about me, right? If we're in a dynamic, you're learning how I want my coffee. You're learning how I want my foot rubs. Like you're learning about how to serve me. First off, we're going to jump the consideration period completely because it's not about, are we a good match, right? We'll sort of figure that out. For professional space is a lot different. So you go sort of right into the training period, but instead of being trained the way I need you to be trained, we're focusing on you being trained the way that you want to be trained. So what are the things that you would want to offer your partner? What are the ways that you would want to behave? And maybe there's some behavioral modification in terms of like training and things like that. That could be an option. That could be a way to move forward. And it's like a practice. So it's kind of a safe space because you don't have to worry about working a specific angle. The angle is that I want you to be better and I want you to pay for the service again. So it's, it's safe in that way. There used to be a really prevalent mentorship system in BDSM. It didn't go away completely, certainly, but it's not what everybody does anymore. And they used to be like really sexual relationships where you're almost paying the dominant for training with sex that has a high potential for abuse, right? Because they get the payment and they don't deliver the goods. I would really caution people against any non-platonic mentorships. There's a high potential for abuse. In fact, one of my first mentor was manipulative, and it cost me some time in terms of my development, and so it was really unfortunate. I would find submissives, and we would like practice with that submissive, and then he would he would just try to sleep with them, which is predatory behavior.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Because he's engaging under a false pretense, right? He's engaging under, oh, this is educational, and then now that I've touched your butt, why don't you give me your number, kind of thing. So that's unfortunate. But I have a really good mentor now, so I'm happy.
Well, good.
And I think that the terrible mentor brought me to my good mentor, so I guess I'm happy with that.
That worked out. Yeah.
Would have rather found that person first, but oh well.
Yeah.
Hey everybody, it's Ezra. Do some of these challenges sound like some of the things you've been dealing with? Maybe your challenges are very different, but you just love to have somebody to work on them with. Well, you're not alone on your journey. I'm here to help. So email askezra8@gmail.com or visit us at askezra.info, and maybe we can set up a session where we just focus on you. All right, back to the last component of our show. Bondage is great. Blindfolds are great. Earplugs are great. Bondage is definitely the highest risk of those things that we talked about. I would recommend that you look into how to do some basic rope so that if you're doing that with people, then it's going to be relatively safe because you know what it looks like when it's done right and you know what it looks like when it's done wrong. That is also a pretty accessible community. There's a lot of like intro to rope classes that happen. You're not in a small town, or you're not far from a large city, I should say, and that they're going to have events. So that would be a good way to like find the community. It tends to be kind of a subset of the community, but it's also like more mellow perhaps than like diving into impact play or something like that.
Okay.
So, but it's not without risk. So do be aware. Things to watch out for are numbness, feelings of feeling cold or hot, like in tight areas, right? Changes in color. All those things are red flags to be like, okay, like, is this okay? So if you're being tied, then you want to watch out for that. You want to be able to still feel everything. You want to have good circulation. I don't want to say you don't want to be in pain, because some people do.
Yes.
There's a torture tie that like goes around the shin twice. So so one line crosses over the other line.
So like pinches.
It forces the line into the shin. I'm going to give you a piece of homework.
Okay.
Because from my experience, I would say that you probably have a much larger number of things that would be interesting to you than you are like readily able to name.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
So there's a survey. It's an insane survey. It's like, it's 22 pages of like, have you done it? Are you interested? And if you were in training, for example, that would be like the first step is like, give me this. Let me see where you're at. Let me see what you're interested in. Let's see what kind of synergies we have. In a coaching situation, I'm going to do that and say, okay, you can share those results with me or not. It's up to you. If something's interesting, go ahead and share that with me. If you've got question marks, you can share that with me. In a dominant and submissive situation, I would be like, fill this out, hand it to me. Right. And so now all that information about how you understand yourself is now, I can see that, and I don't even need to ask about, how do you feel about anal? Like, I don't need to be vulnerable personally and ask you the thing that I'm interested in. I can just look at the sheet and I see it.
Okay.
Right. And so it's kind of a power move. Right.
Okay.
But as a coach, I'm not dominating you. And so that's your information. Okay. And if you want to share that with me, awesome. Feel free to look at that. I mean, I don't want you to read it through while we're on the call, because that would be the rest of our time. But, but I think it'll be really informative, and feel free to like not understand things. Like, you shouldn't know every word.
Okay.
Yeah. It's like 590 items.
Okay.
So don't go in being like, I didn't know that one word, I'm bad. Like, don't worry about that. And some of them
are not ready to go into this line of work.
It's not perfect. Like, some of these words are antiquated. Some of these words are like pathologized. I think it's like barismophilia. I'm probably fucking that up, but like actually liking to be flogged, actually liking to be hit. Right. Okay. Like, I like impact play. That's how you say that in English. You don't say you have like that thing. But it's actually interesting, until very recently, sadism and masochism were considered disorders. And they only came off the DSM in like 2008.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, and that's when I do know, like, I know I like to be spanked. I would like to try other things, but that's as far as I've ever gotten a partner to be like comfortable with.
Yeah. Well, it takes time. There's a lot of socialization that says you don't hit girls. There's a lot of people who are just really uncomfortable with that idea. And I like to spank. My partner likes to be spanked more than my hand will handle. So that's why I got toys. That's why I got all the things. If you like to be spanked, that puts you on the masochistic spectrum. You're somewhere on the spectrum, right? And where you are, you kind of have to figure out yourself. Like, are you a sensual bottom? Are you a heavy bottom? Are you somewhere in the middle? Do you like sting and not thud? Do you like thud and not sting? So on and so forth, right? Most impact, we sort of divide into two sensations. Thud is going to be that deep tissue sensation, and sting is going to be that more superficial sensation, right? More on the surface sensation. I like to say, if you just punch yourself in the ass and you're like, that's the stuff, that's thud, right? Whereas if you spank yourself in the ass, that's sting.
I think it's sting. I think it's definitely sting that I prefer.
Sure. Other things that are on sting, that are like on the stingy side, are canes, whips, cat o' nine tails, broad paddles, like big paddles that are like wide because they hit a large surface area. You want to stay away from paddles with holes in them.
Yeah. 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 I knew people in fraternities. I'm going to stay far, far away from the ones with holes.
Yeah. Well, and feel free to avoid the ones that are like triggers for you. Like some people are like, you cannot hit me with a chakla. You can't hit me with a sandal. Like, that's what my mother did, and I'm going to be sad if you do. Other people are attracted to those things that are sort of triggering, but other ones that tend to have sort of cultural significance are like rulers or belts. So some of those are, people are like, I love that. And other people are like, don't ever do that. Thanks for watching the Ask Ezra podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with your friends on social media. If you would like to review this episode, please do so at Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to support the episode, go to patreon.com/askezra, and you can sign up for our mailing list at askezra8@gmail.com. Lastly, if you'd like to find out if intimacy coaching is right for you, visit askezra.info. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to tune in next time.